Hi, friends. How is it going? Today's topic is about inquiring inventory visibility by the help of PowerApps. We know the immense capabilities of inventory visibilities. So, all we need to do is to install inventory visibilities, APIs. We can do this by the help of LCS, and we can also get this installed directly on our Power Portal Admin Central as well. And once this inventory visibility add-ins is in place, we can leverage, we can inquire the various, we can inquire the various stocks, the various conditions of the stock. We can do various soft reservation. We can find out the allocation. We can find out the various stock levels at different, the omni-channel outcomes of a given item ID. So what if we do the same by using a Power App? So we are going to call the Power App, we are going to key in the various items that we need to inquire, and then we are going to get in touch with Dynamics 365's inventory visibilities by calling the necessary APIs, which is happening behind the hoods through the below mentioned process. So first of all, we are going to set up the flow. We are going to define the flow by which it is going to encounter, it's going to interfere, it's going to interconnect with Dynamics 365's inventory visibility API. We are going to create a connect from the flow to Power Apps. Then we are going to create the Power Apps to accept user inputs. Then we are going to call the flow from Power Apps to pass on whatever user is going to input to the main flow. And finally, we are going to return the results to Power Apps. As apart from this steps, we are also additionally going to publish the Power Apps and embed the Power Apps to Dynamics 365 Finance and Operations on the dashboard so that it could be available for everyone's use. Let me start with the Postman collection, which I shared with you in another previous video, whereby it is basically a two-step process. The first step is basically you are going to obtain the Azure Active Directory token, which you are going to pass on as a bearer token to the next step, which is essentially and consequently going to obtain the token for inventory visibility. Finally, you are going to pass this on as a token to the, as a part of the header, as a bearer token, and you can call the index query API, and you can get the result. Say for example, if I get the inventory token like this, AAD token like this, and in the next step I am going to obtain the IV token, that is inventory visibility token, which is like this. And in the third step, I am basically passing on the body as USMF and the product is 1000. I'm saving this as a site equal to 1 and 30 location ID is equal to 13. So when I'm passing this on, it is going to come back as the total quantity available physical is 410. So this is exactly we are going to do on a flow, which I'm going to show you, where I am first of all going to define the essential variables which I have defined in my environment out here, and I'm going to do the same thing in my variable initializations as a part of my flow design, and then I'm going to obtain the AAD token like I showed you, and then I'll obtain the IV token, and finally I'll call the IV API, wherefrom I would get the actual inventory quantity. And this is my flow which I have created. So this flow is, if I go to the edit, I can show you, like as I said, I first of all defined all my variables. All these variables as I was describing in my previous video on Postman connection with inventory visibilities, you can get all the details over there. And I'll also be sharing this collection, this index query, on-hand index query, this this flow I'm also going to share with you, and as a part of this video link. So these are the variables which I have defined, and in this step basically I am calling the inventory, not the inventory, I'm calling the first token which I'm going to obtain from Azure Active Directory by by calling a post method. And uh, by the way, I have just give this as a hard-coded values, but definitely you can and or rather you must change this as a variable by calling the necessary variables. You can pass this on. Say for example, this is client ID. You can call this client ID as a client ID you have defined from here, and client secret you have defined from here. Like that, you can pass this on. So in the next step, I am basically parsing the result that I am getting from Azure Active Directory token, which is the access token. Then I am calling the IV, the Inventory Visibility Token Service, whereby I am passing the token value which I have received from the previous step. I am passing this as a part of client assertion. And this is basically a hard-coded value, which is the inventory token endpoint URL, which you are calling as a part of the scope. So once you have got this value, I am storing this in a token value, which is known as the access token, AD token IV. I am storing this in a variable. Then I'm calling the actual HTTP post on hand index query, which is nothing but passing on the HTTP request which I have received as a part of the HTTP body which I have got from here, and I am passing this value out here. So in down here, I am passing this as a body. So this body, I am waiting for the response to come. So the moment the response comes, I am parsing the response. So the response that basically comes is, as I was showing you in my JSON. So out of the response, as I was saying, I'm interested about getting the value of the avail physical from the response JSON, which I'm going to get from calling this IV query. I would like to parse this JSON value out of the response payload that I'm receiving. And yes, that's what exactly I'm doing here. I'm getting the value of the avail physical inside my parse JSON, and I have basically declared a variable called avail quantity, and inside this for loop, basically I'm obtaining the value of the avail quantity by getting inside the response that which I have received in my body. And finally I'm creating a small response as a JSON response, and I'm showing it back to the caller. So that's net what exactly this flow is doing. So I am, in a very nutshell, I am basically receiving the content of HTTP request, and I am passing on the response of the avail physical as a response out here. Now let us go back to make.powerapps.com, where I have created a small app, which if I run, it looks like it basically is going to accept the user's inputs and is going to call this flow. So this is the form, basically the PowerApps form that it looks like. So what I'm doing is that I'm passing on the legal entity which I want to inquire from. I'm passing on an item code, a product code. I can check for all the sites and locations, or I can give a particular site and location. So suppose I want to give a site as site number 2 and a location as location 24, and if I submit this, so it will call the flow and it will bring to you the result as 150 as a pop-up. So if I close this and if I take this on, it will remove the site and location information, and if I click this on, it will sum up all the results. This is the reason why I was going through for loop. It is basically summing up all the results of the JSON payload array that it was returning, and the result is basically summed up and going to be returned to you. So you see, this is irrespective of all the sites, it's clubbing up. So, and also not to mention, like, it varies. It's not hard coded. You can find out. I can change the result to something else. I can also wait for some other item ID. So it is giving a result as 410, so which is correct and as per the value that the inventory visibility was returning as part of the postman. I would like to show you how have I designed this screen. So if I come back to the design and let me take it to the design mode, and I'd show you, it looks like basically I have started with things are getting ready. Okay, so I've started with a very small form, which let me open this and let me take you to the maximized mode, and it's taking a while to open. So in the meanwhile, what I would show you is I have already created one more flow, which is basically integrating the call between PowerApps to the flow which I showed you. So this flow is also a very simple flow, which looks like it is accepting the values whatever the user is sending and is calling the HTTP request to this flow and is receiving the response from that flow. So this is a PowerApps flow. This is a trigger, and the trigger, these are the inputs: data area ID, item ID, site and location ID. I'm initializing a variable like this, which is a JSON quantity, which is nothing but the response that I'm going to get. And here I am basically doing a condition check, like if the site and locations are empty, then you call, this is my way I have done this, but you can do it better. If you have anything else, any other plan, like it's basically composing a JSON response, a JSON input like this: data area ID, item ID, site and location, and it is basically response. It is sending out the HTTP request like this. And the output is the compose, whatever the compose JSON is, the output of that step is going to be the input for HTTP. And I am setting the variable of this execution into this variable, which is by JSON quantity, which is a float type variable. If this condition is not satisfied, then it will come here. And it is basically just passing on the data area ID and the item ID, but not the site and location in this case. So it is just passing on this HTTP call like this and is tapping the outcome in a variable called JSON quantity. And finally, I am returning the response from the PowerApps that it was from where it was getting called. Now one point you must keep in your mind, which is basically the data area ID, the item ID. These two are mandatory fields. Whereas this is an optional field. This is the reason why it is showing me the option as make the field as required. So I've kept this as an optional field, the event site ID and location ID. And the equation completely changes when you are calling an optional field from PowerApps. How to do that, I will show you. So once you have published this version, you can come back to your PowerApps out here, and let me open this and let me maximize this value. And it's very simple. What I have done is I have gone to my local data entity like this, and here in my submit button, I have called this as item quantity as obviously as you can understand, it's a variable, and I'm calling this run as data area ID and item ID. Then in a pair of curly braces, text1 as site ID and text2 as location ID. Where say text1 and text2 are nothing but these two variables, text1 and text2, which are optional variables, and I am saying them as within a curly brace just so as to mention it that, hey, this guy is a optional variable. So text 1's value is side ID, text 2's value is location ID. If this is not there, you should treat them as empty or blank value. So once this is done, the response is QTY. QTY is the, if you remember, the quantity was basically what was coming. If I go down, and what was coming as the quantity is basically the value which I have stored the outcome as. Okay, so when I am storing the value in my in a variable called item quantity, so how will I show this to you is basically, if I go back all the way down and to have defined a container display, and inside this container display I have kept this button called button pop-up and a text value as this. So the text value, this value is basically set as item quantity. So I have set this value as item quantity. So whenever this item quantity is whatever is basically getting evaluated from the submit button's response, I am storing that item quantity out here. And in the button pop-up, as you can rightly guess, I am updating the context of a variable called show pop-up as false, which is in the submit button. I am updating the value of the show pop-up as true, as because of which this container pop-up is going to be shown, and when you have clicked on the button pop-up, it will be disabled, it will be removed. So that exactly is what is happening. So if I click on this, it is going to call my flow by calling the second flow, which is basically a response from the first flow. So if you wait here, if you refresh the all runs, you'd see, like, 14 seconds ago, it is basically calling the variable which I have passed on from here, and it is getting inside here, and it will show you the value of the different inputs that I have given, like USMF, that is the name of the data area ID, and 1000, which is the value of my item ID, and rest two are null. As these two are null, that is how the response is going over there. Response is going to the true part, and it is basically it is going to the false part. Going to the false part, and it's creating the compose value, which is basically more of an input without the site and location. And finally, it is coming back with the QTY value, which is equal to 410, which is the sum of all the quantities across all sites and locations, and I'm saving them and storing it back here in my variable called item quantity. And lastly, I can go to this app which I have created out here in the details. If I click on details, and if I go to the details from here, so at the very bottom of the page, I can get the different details that are associated with the app, which is basically the app ID. I can copy this app ID out here, and I can go back to my Dynamics 365's home page, and I can customize this further. Say, for example, I can click this out here. So in the font information, I can go to the personalized apps, and in the personalized apps, it will come like this. I can add a page. So if I add a page like this, I can click on the PowerApps, and I can give a name, inventory query, and I can paste the app ID out here. So when I'm pasting this, I think it didn't get copied properly, so let me copy this once again. So when I'm copying and pasting this in my Dynamics 365 and I'm keeping on OK, it will come and get shown. And if you refresh the page, it will show you the Power app that you have just embedded in your Dynamics 365. So if I click on this, Inquire Inventory, so it will show you in a while, it will load the app right here. You can change, obviously, you can change an icon, you can give a proper icon, and exactly it's going to show you the inquiry form which you have created. So that's it. And if you like the whole concept, please let me know how it went. And as promised, I'm going to embed both the flows just so as to make you import them and do the amendments as needed. And let me know how it went. All the best and much love to you. Don't forget to subscribe and like my channel. Namaste.